everyone. Welcome to this episode of Spotlight On, a series of interviews brought to you by Overdeck Family Foundation. Here, we sit down with the nonprofit leaders shaping the future of education and talk to them about innovation, evidence, and growth. My name is Emma Banay, and I manage the Foundation's Inspired Minds grantmaking portfolio, which aims to build the next generation of confident, creative problem solvers by expanding access to engaging and challenging STEM learning experiences. I'll be your host for today's Spotlight on Growth, and joining me is Hannah Paulin, Chief Strategic Officer at the National Inventors Hall of Fame, a nonprofit that works in partnership with the United States Patent and Trademark Office to recognize inventors, promote creativity, and advance the spirit of innovation and entrepreneurship. Hannah has been with the National Inventors Hall of Fame for 24 years, where she leads the organization's philanthropic partnerships team. She also serves on the National Inventors Hall of Fame Board of Directors, the United States Intellectual Property Alliance Board of Directors, the Council for Inclusive Innovation, and the Akron Public Schools National Inventors Hall of Fame STEM Middle and High Schools Executive Committee. Welcome, Hannah.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So Hannah, for anyone who might not be familiar, can you tell us about the National Inventors Hall of Fame? How did it get started? And how did you eventually find yourself drawn into this world of invention?
Yeah, so the National Inventors Hall of Fame was founded more than 50 years ago in 1973, as you mentioned, in partnership with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. And really at that time, our mission was solely focused on recognizing the world's greatest inventors as inductees to the Hall of Fame. So inspired by those inductees, we really recognized that there was an opportunity not just to recognize these men and women, but also to make sure that we were inspiring the next generation of kids whose ideas would really transform the future through those inductees' inspirations. So in 1990, we launched our first education program, which is Camp Invention. And since then, our organization has really evolved to be the nation's leading nonprofit providing STEM and also invention education programs, competitions, and events on a national scale.
Great. And from your vantage point as Chief Strategic Officer, talk to us about how you see the state of STEM learning in pre-K through 12. So science, technology, engineering, and math. We know post-pandemic learning recovery in math in particular has been uneven, and that still across the board, just too many students have limited access to the kinds of engaging hands-on STEM learning opportunities that you all offer. So what are you seeing right now in the field?
Yeah, so really, I would start by saying that the need for hands-on STEM learning opportunities has always outpaced available funding. But what we've seen is that there has really been a consistent national prioritization of hands-on STEM learning. And as you mentioned, post-pandemic, what we've seen, what everyone's seen, has been the opportunity gap widen even more. So the need to provide students with really engaging, fun, in school and out of school time STEM programs is really greater than ever. For the National Inventors Hall of Fame, thanks to the ESSER funding, districts spent a lot of money investing in our programs, which allowed us to really rapidly expand the number of children that we could impact, and districts across the country as they really used that money to help their students recover post-pandemic. So we used that time, about 30 years of experience and evaluation behind our Camp Invention program to create a new program, which is Invention Project, which is dedicated to being really flexible as an in-school, out-of-school, and summer program to meet those needs of districts. We saw so many different models in terms of what they needed, the time they needed, and the structure that they needed. So really tried to make sure that we could align as best as possible with every district that we ran across. And now that ESSER funding is gone, we're tracking all the funding opportunities that are available really now at a state and federal level, as well as through our philanthropic partners to try to fill some of those gaps. We know that these investments can make a huge impact on the children who otherwise just don't have access to OST programs. They're the ones that get left behind the most. And as a nonprofit, that's a key part of our mission, is to be able to reach all kids and also to help prevent that opportunity gap from growing even wider in the next couple of years.
Yeah. I want to pick up on a couple of the threads that you just mentioned: your growth during the pandemic, your commitment to reaching kids who might not have access otherwise, your incredible reach across the country. The National Inventors Hall of Fame has continued to evolve since it was established in 1973. Today is operating in all 50 states, Puerto Rico, DC. Talk to us about that pandemic impact on your organization's educational programming and the growth trajectory that it sort of kicked off for you all.
Yeah. So when we first began Camp Invention in 1990, that was the first program. It was here in Akron, Ohio, in the basement of a museum that we had. 5 years later, in 1995, we had 8 programs, and we were reaching about 700 kids. Yeah. And a year later, we were at 80 programs, about 4,000 kids. So we were starting to, kind of take off through that. And the growth really did continue through there. Pre-pandemic in 2019, we were reaching about 178,000 children, and about a third of those, about 62,000, were underserved kids. And those programs were growing. Camp Invention was growing about 10% a year. And, obviously when that pandemic hit, that number took a huge hit. We still managed to reach about 100,000, just over 100,000 children in 2020. But, the condition of where we were at that point was just so strange. It was March when the pandemic hit. Yeah. Our summer programs were just about to ship. And the model, for those who don't know about Camp Invention, was that we ship pallets of materials to schools across the country for that in-person collaborative learning. And for, boxed for 40 to 120 kids per program. So we had about 6 weeks to completely re-engineer what the model was going to be. Yeah. And that included rewriting all of the curriculum, changing from classroom sets to individual materials that we could ship to one child's home. Yeah. That could be freestanding for kids that didn't have access necessarily to virtual programs or taught virtually. And then also training teachers, because for them, Zoom is so natural to us now, but at that point, most teachers and staff didn't have any idea how to use these platforms. So we were learning alongside them to try to support what was happening. We buoyed back up then in 2021, and we reached about just over 236,000 kids. And so that, trajectory started to kind of recover. This year, we're impacting twice the number of kids we were just 5 years ago. So we're at 365,000 pre-K to 12 students, and about 260,000 of those are underserved, largely through that district support. So it's been a rough road, but we're back up there and now looking at what the next couple of years might look like post-ESSER.
Yeah. And you also had really impressive growth and uptake in the in-school program that was sort of the counterpart to the more challenging road for the out-of-school time programs, which took such a immediate hit during the pandemic. So can you talk a little bit about how your team was able to navigate that really explosive growth on the in-school side, and sort of what key decisions you were making as a team during that period?
Yeah. I think the biggest key to our success is really trying to live our mission. So we had to be innovative. We had to really focus on that creative problem solving. Our speed to market was really a critical differentiator at that point. So we had a well-established model and in-house buyers and on-site curriculum development and a warehouse that was here. So everything that we did, including purchasing and shipping, was all under one roof, and I think really did help set us up for success. Everyone in this organization was down in the warehouse pulling apart, boxes of pipe cleaners that were boxed for 100 kids, and now they had to go to one kid. And so, all of those things kind of helped us to be able to kind of right that ship a little bit. We also really focused on staying in lockstep with local school districts and those parents and students to hear, what was happening, get survey data, do on-site observations and program evaluation to really make sure that we were meeting the needs of what they needed, because it was just changing, from week to week almost. And finally, I would say we really invested as much as possible, even while our 2020 budget was slashed in half, trying to invest versus fearfully retracting. And that, I think, helped set us up for the next couple of years, as tough, as tough as that was. And we definitely didn't get it right at every step. So we had to also then make sure that we followed that inductee model of failing fast, recovering and shifting, and just not getting kind of stuck in where we thought we should be.
Yeah. Okay, you just mentioned your inductees, and I want to go dig in there, because one of the things that makes the National Inventors Hall of Fame so unique is this incredibly close connection that you have to the inductees in the Hall of Fame and the growing sort of community of inventors that you have established as part of that. So can you talk about how the connections to the inductees themselves shape your educational programming?
Yeah. And those inductees really are the basis for everything that we do. Every National Inventors Hall of Fame education program is inspired and directly influenced by that diverse group of real-world inventors that, mostly as our inductees, but we also have a group of collegiate inventors competition students that also help inspire our work and are kind of that next younger generation. So this includes everything really from providing feedback on our curriculum to presenting video challenges to kids who come to Camp Invention. And that might look like Francis Arnold challenging camp kids to invent a new way or a new type of bacteria that could do cool things like eat plastic or help clean water. So making those relevant connections between the work that they're doing. And then also making sure that those inductees get out to see our programs and to interact with kids. What we find is that it makes then their stories and their journeys so much more relatable. It's also fun to see a kid put on a National Inventors Hall of Fame inductee medallion and wear it around, their neck, and maybe start to kind of get that real visual of what they could become one day. And those inductees also really give us a good opportunity to showcase diversity and give children those role models who look like them, who face challenges just like them, and kind of feel welcome in their learning environment, cultivate that sense of belonging that kids really need in order to be successful. We know that there are 1,000 different pathways to lead to invention. And so as we mine those inductees' stories too, we try to find those stories that can reach kids depending on really different environments that they're in and what their challenges in life may be. And we know there's no prescribed formula for inventing. So just being able to pull out those themes and help represent them in our I Can Invent mindset to kids so that they can see themselves in that way is really important.
Yeah. And it's making me think of, the research base that talks about the importance of role modeling and connections to inventors within kids' lives, which leads us to talking about impact a little bit. So tell us more about how the National Inventors Hall of Fame measures its impacts, on students, educators, families. How do you approach that, and what results have you seen?
Yeah. We talk a lot about data-driven decision-making and measuring impact really through both internal surveys from parents and teachers, and then a lot of external evaluation that we have a couple decades building on. So over the past, over 20 years, we've really seen some key data points, which include, first of all, that Camp Invention really supports the cultivation of this innovation, invention mindset as kids really explore what their self-perception as inventors and innovators looks like. A number of years ago, we had some partners that thought 1 week of Camp Invention is never going to be able to move that needle, for kids. And we said, let's study it. Let's find this out. And to everyone's, we weren't amazed. We knew it, but you feel a little shaky when you put something big like that out in the world, and found that just 1 week of Camp Invention results in significant short-term and long-term improvements in creativity and STEM interest, in collaboration and problem solving. And students, as they build on that with multiple experiences, that really, they show those higher gains in those areas. So we also showed that participating in Camp Invention during the summer has increased students' performance and engagement during the following school year. So looking at some pre-post testing, they had better attendance, GPA, and test scores, which we know really are just three key steps to ensuring that a child takes that college path or is set up for success later on in life.
Yeah.
And then I would say just, we talk a lot about kids, but for teachers, our programs also help them to incorporate more entrepreneurial concepts in their teaching. I think, especially teachers that aren't necessarily teaching in STEM subjects, but instruct our programs, often give us feedback that they're more likely to foster risk-taking in their classrooms and create this atmosphere of acceptance of different ideas because they've experienced it, through 32 hours of a Camp Invention program. They've seen the change in those kids, and it helps them feel a little bit more accessible to that.
Yeah. One of the ideas that we think about a lot at Overdeck Family Foundation and that you and I have talked about is this idea that STEM learning is really effective when it occurs at the intersection of joy and rigor. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts, or do you agree? Spoiler alert, I think you do. And how do you balance those two ideas in National Inventor Hall of Fame programming and measure the success of those different contributions?
Yeah, we absolutely agree with that assessment. And I love that phrase. And one of the things I think that we see is that when you have joy, children don't notice the rigor. They're just immersed in what they're doing and can truly embrace the experience. So, when you give them something that they're passionate about, that they find pleasure in, that they can connect their everyday lives with and their own experiences with, it brings them that joy, and they don't notice the toughness or the uniqueness of what you're teaching them. That hands-on creating and problem solving with that playful attitude really are key to that. And we know that also sets them up for being lifelong learners. That's really our whole goal. We don't necessarily say that kids that go through our program need to be, STEM majors or engineers or mathematicians. We're looking for them to be able to just be set up for success in their career path, feel themselves that they're creative problem solvers and that they have skills that might not necessarily come through in their traditional school year, school time environments.
Yeah.
And by letting them kind of brainstorm and iterate their ideas around that too, it has a lot of power in being able to build their confidence. So we're not looking for one right answer as they go through a challenge. We're looking for 100 different answers and then kids to kind of explore and test and fail and find that, some joy in failure then and acceptance in that so that they know kind of what they need to be able to continue.
Yeah. I love that frame. And the different ways that joy and rigor sort of show up within your work that you just described. I want to pivot a little bit just to really highlight this interesting role you play where you're a physical museum. You offer all of these amazing educational programs for other museums or nonprofits that want to learn from your experience. What are the critical factors that you think have helped fuel the longevity and the success of National Inventors Hall of Fame?
Yeah, we are still a museum. So at the USPTO headquarters, we have a museum, and that's really dedicated to those inductees. And I think for us, the key has really been using our mission to guide decisions and to try to continually come back to that as we evolve. And then also making sure that we keep those inductees at the core of everything that we do and really creating authentic programs around their inspiration. So I would say also, making sure that we follow that the inductee's example and prioritizing collaboration, bringing people together in diverse perspectives, and using their expertise to make sure that we're constantly improving, constantly challenging, and trying to stay ahead of, what's to come. It's a tough place to be when you're creating new curriculum every single year and trying to anticipate, what's the fad going to be, or that you can kind of latch onto to get a kid hooked, because until you get them to the program, that's the tough spot. We know once we get them there, they're going to have fun and enjoy it, but you kind of have to find that diversity of subjects to make sure that everybody feels like there's a place for them there. And then I would say, finally, we really lean on this regional approach. So we have people across the country, making sure that those school districts feel supported, that we keep a pulse on what's going on locally, not just nationally as a national organization, so that we can just continually evolve and align with what what they need.
Yeah. Okay, so you just said how hard it is to read the future, but I'm going to ask you to do it anyway.
Yeah.
Sort of looking ahead to this next year, we do know that we're entering this tightening fiscal climate. The ESSER funds have already expired. What are the sort of critical questions that you and your team are thinking about as you're deciding how to navigate such a shifting landscape?
We've been really unfortunate through all of you, through Overdeck Family Foundation, to not just get support through grants, but really through a lot of strategic and financial and capacity building opportunities. So I would say, to this question is the things that we are thinking about as an organization that are those big questions. We've been kind of buoyed up through these third-party partnerships. So, about a year ago or so, BDO really helped us to look at our financial model structures. And how we can flexibly adjust. We were spending a lot of time on financial models that were just all manual. And so we use this really daily to update our assumptions and better forecast and kind of, put through scenarios as we look at what funding might look like in the coming year.
Yeah.
5 of us also just went through the RevGen program. And I would say that really helped to give us some structure and space to evaluate our revenue model, assess where we are now and see what that future might look like and make sure that we're all aligned in that. Because, you kind of cruise through making decisions sometimes without, and you assume you're all in lockstep until you really take the time to pause and allow make sure that we're aligned, that our core competencies are really the same, see what we can stop doing. That's kind of a new favorite thing that we don't spend a lot of time on, but you have to also do when you're expanding. You have to contract a little sometimes. And then make sure that, we have a good culture so that we can implement that really successfully.
Yeah. I love how you also wove those two together. Your team really thought about how those different supports and the work that you're already doing could serve that larger vision of navigating a tricky moment.
Yeah.
Okay, so to close us out, the question we're asking all of our guests, looking ahead to the next decade in education, what makes you hopeful?
I think having this great opportunity to connect generations of inventors really does make us hopeful. It's the perfect word to frame up, where we're at right now. And as we look at bringing together different ages, different backgrounds and experiences, we really see how great ideas absolutely come from everyone. And we have to make sure that that we're spreading that message as widely as possible. We're hopeful about, the role of STEM and invention in unlocking that potential and what that might bring. And we also recognize that we have really a lot of responsibility here. The size of our organization is large, the scale is large, and we need to really make sure that we're constantly mindful of that as it relates to our mission and the decisions that we're making. I think every time I, visit a local program, it's exciting to see the kids' eyes light up as they, take those original ideas and create their own inventions, realize that their ideas have value. And there's so much discussion right now about the challenges that are coming up, and they're real. And I don't mean to diminish that in any way, but we believe that future is bright. We believe that to our core. And this is how we believe we're going to get there.
Yeah. So that's such a beautiful note to end on, this really powerful marriage of the inspiration and excitement of the inductees and the energy and passion of young people and all of their potential. So thank you for bringing us to that closing note. And thank you for joining us for this episode of Spotlight On, brought to you by Overdeck Family Foundation. We hope you enjoyed it. Be the first to know when our next episode hits by subscribing to our YouTube channel and our foundation's newsletter. Bye for now.
Bye.